All right. Okay, so going to move through this pretty quick because I have some limited battery life here on my machine right now. What I'm going to do is kind of double click this shoe name area here in my text box. And I'm going to open up the paragraph styles, and I'll pull that paragraph styles palette out here. And then the character styles, I'll pull that palette out as well. So when the way you know what a paragraph or character style is applied to whichever piece of text you have clicked on is basically you're just going to click on it and look at these two menus here on your left. And so you can see that I have header actually highlighted here. Shoe number is not highlighted in my character style, so this is telling me that the header paragraph style is applied to this block of copy. I'll actually turn my invisibles on by pressing the W key on the keyboard. And then actually, if you don't see the type, you can go over to type and show hidden characters, which is right here. So mine says hide hidden characters. You're going to want to say show hidden characters if you can't see it. And so what you'll see if you do have those characters on, those hidden characters on, is this little paragraph symbol at the end, along with this little soft return symbol and these little space symbols in the copy. So if you had like an extra space in between words or something like that, it'd be easier to identify this way. Some of the reasons why you would use that. Another reason you would use that is to identify what's my paragraph. So I'll double click this paragraph. This whole entire block is my paragraph. So my paragraph header style is applied here. So if I double click header in the paragraph styles palette, I'm going to be able to actually open up this dialog box and click the preview button. I'll kind of nudge, it's a little bit large here, so I'm going to kind of have to hide it down a little bit. So once I hit this preview button, I'm going to be able to see, I wish I could make that smaller. I'm going to be able to see basically what is going on here. I'll just zoom out a bit. What is going on here on my interface and my copy. Let me see if I can nudge. Nope, guess not. All right, well, I'll zoom out a bit more. So with my header style selected, I can actually go in and change some of the character formatting. So basic stuff like typeface, type weight, the font size, I'll just up and down a little bit to show you that it's changing in real time. My preview button is checked, so I'm actually able to see everything happening. But you'll notice that as I'm changing my size or my typeface, for instance, everything that has that header paragraph style applied to it is changing simultaneously. So I can change the typeface simultaneously across the board. I can change the type weight simultaneously, the size, etc. I can actually change the casing, so I can do small caps, normal, all caps, so on and so forth. A lot of different options. You can see there's a ton of options here. Another useful one here is under, let's say, advanced character formats. I can actually lower or raise the baseline of this. So say I wanted all of the headers in this whole document to raise the baseline, and I'll hit OK. You can see that that header style is applied to every single page of this whole document. So if I were to, say, apply a header style to this, I could just double click it, click on the header style, and it'll apply to that, piece of content, which is not what I want to do. But if you have a style established, and what we'll do is work on this spread to establish a style for the rest of the book, and you change your mind, let's say later on, you can really quickly make those changes happen by just updating that style. Some other useful ones here are the indent and spacing option. So I can change the alignment to, let's say, left, right, or center. I'll center it. And increase or decrease the space after, which is right here. So if I wanted more paragraph spacing after, you can see that it's increasing or decreasing and so on. Another thing that people like to use, and I specifically like to use, are the underlining features. So I can add an underline, let's say for my header, just like that, and then I can offset the underline by adjusting that up or down, change the weight, make it dotted or anything like that. Make the weight larger so the dots show up thicker. Changing those kinds of options are all things you can kind of do. Let's see. And there's a ton of, obviously color, you can change the color, etc. The thing about the color is I can basically select the color from my swatches. So this panel here will line up to the swatches that I have in my swatches palette. So if I have any special colors or Pantone colors and that type of thing, I can just select them out of this list. Or I can just actually use my slider here and choose a color. Or from this drop down, you can pick a Pantone color like that too. Let me see if I can find one that's more, okay. And then it'll add to the swatches, and then you should just be able to use it. Oops. So that's kind of in a nutshell, high-level paragraph styles. So as we were changing that paragraph style, I'm going to take the underline off real quick because it's kind of distracting me. Here we go. So as we were changing the paragraph style, it was applying the same header style to everything here. And there were some aspects of the type that was changing here too, because this 1, 2, 3, 4 number digits here are part of the header paragraph style. So if I want to just isolate and change this object, this is basically has the shoe number style applied to it. So what's happening here is that this typeface didn't really change. It stayed Helvetica New, right? So if I double-click the shoe number character style will then override whatever the paragraph style says. So let's just say I change the character style for this piece to none. So now it has the exact characteristics of the header paragraph style, this 1, 2, 3, 4, what I'm calling shoe number. If I highlight that and apply shoe number to it, that's going to apply the shoe number character style. It does adopt some aspects of the header paragraph style, such as the baseline in this instance and also the text color. So I can actually change that individually by double-clicking on the character style and going into, let's say my character color and changing that to black. And well, I'll change it to magenta so it's more noticeable. And then I'll go back to my basic character formats and see if I can readjust the baseline shift for that particular item. Oh, yeah, my preview is not on. So if I'll preview, now I'll try and nudge it. There we go. Okay. So for character styles, you'll notice that there's a lot of options here that are not available in the that are available in paragraph styles. So really just keep in mind that character styles are really just specific to characters that you find in your body copy. So if I wanted this, for instance, to be a special type of a bold or a bold color, I would create a character style with to apply to little pieces of content within that paragraph. Okay. If I wanted to change full bodies of the paragraph, then I would apply a style to that separate. So just remember that character styles override paragraph styles. So paragraph styles is the largest style that's applied to the whole body of copy. A paragraph style is just designed to simply change particular characters within that paragraph style, or i.e. override that paragraph style in specific instances. So basically, if I were to, really look at this and say, okay, well, I'm not crazy about this header style. I'm just going to change it to see what I want to do. What I would do is just have a bunch of type, at the ready, so you can kind of go through and experiment with this, see what's working and what's not, and then very simply just apply those styles, have a look at it, see if it's working in those multiple instances across the piece, and make your final decision that way as far as where you want to go. You can always change it later, but the thing is that if you change it later, there's room for basically your text box to be too small for the changes you made in your type initially. So for example, I'll hit OK here. I was changing this header style a bunch of times, and inadvertently I created 39 errors in my document. And all those errors here, this is my pre-flight panel that we looked at earlier. In my pre-flight panel, I'll open it up and see that my errors are because of overset text. So these text boxes, a lot of these text boxes actually are now not able to fit all of that text in there. And if I can open that up and say which text frame, I'll click on one, and it's the very first text frame in this whole document. So that's basically telling me that every single text frame here has this overset error. So I can maybe go into my header style, and what I would probably do is reduce the amount of spacing that I have in my paragraph rule. So my space after rule, I could reduce it a couple times, and then look at my pre-flight panel. I'll hit OK just to close that up. My pre-flight panel, there's no errors in it. So that's what it was. My paragraph style was affecting all of the boxes, pushing all the type outside of the boxes, and that kind of fixed it all. If you want to change up your, let me go back to page 8. If you want to change up your body copy, which you're going to want to do, just hit the body copy paragraph style and then change it up. Again, if you're not sure what style is applied to any of this stuff, just highlight it. Highlight it, look at your paragraph or character styles panel and see, do I have any character styles applied? In this case, no. My color options paragraph style is applied. So it's highlighted here, and I can see that once I make a change to that color options paragraph style, I know what's going to be affected all throughout. It's going to be these little color number areas. So I'll just hit my drop down, find something fun to use, change it, see if it works, kind of, sort of. Doesn't have to be perfect at this point because you could always change it later. But remember, if you change it later, you might knock things out of the text box and have to go in and make your text boxes larger and so on, then that's fine too. And then I don't really like that indent. I inadvertently clicked something. So I don't like that indent here, so I'm going to go into my header style and take that indent away, I think. Let's see if I can... wonder what that is. Oh, it's an alignment. Okay, that's what it is. It's a center align, so I want to left align it. There we go. All right, so there's that. And body copy. So again, body copy, just kind of highlighting the body copy. That's what it is. So changing that would be great. Just kind of highlight it, double click on that, and then open it up and just, what did I choose here? Maybe that. Small. Nope. Oh. Something like that. A little bit big for my taste, so I'm going to go in and make those changes again, which is not, this is nice because I don't have to, again, change every text box and see how it looks across the board, but rather just see what kind of changes are happening all at once. Again, I'm having that overflow issue, so I'll just go back to header and take some more of that space out because I'm really generous with the space after spacing, so I'll just take a little bit more out and then just fix the problem here from the overflowing of text. All right. Next. Okay, so let's say you wanted to add a new paragraph and character style, right? So like maybe I wanted to make my headers for certain shoes a different style, or maybe the headers and body copy, let's just say. So let me just select this style here, and I'm going to actually click this new paragraph style swatch option here, and it's going to create something called paragraph style 1. So I'm going to actually double click on this to change it to, I'll call it header bold, right? So I'll change that style to header bold, and I'm going to double click that and jump in and just really take this and go, okay, I'm going to just make it a simple black weight. And then maybe I'll make the size larger for these instances. Maybe a little bit smaller than that large. And then I'll change the color of it too. Maybe just want something really kind of quick and simple. All right, so hit OK there. And so there you've actually created a new header bold paragraph style. So if I wanted to do this for a couple different ones, I could just do that and then double click it and then hit the header bold style. Again, as with any style, if I wanted to change all of those instances of header bold, I would just change it in my paragraph styles. If I wanted to create a new body copy style, right, select the body copy, add style. I'll call this body bold. And I'll actually just define the parameters of it right here really quickly. It's it's too subtle, so I'm going to change that. Let me change the type to heavy. It's still really subtle. I'm going to try and make this more obvious. I'll change the change the font altogether. I'll make it black, and then make the type larger. There we go. So that's a little more obvious. So there, it's just a different body copy style. Say I wanted to apply it to this style as well. I could do that like that just by double clicking the paragraph copy there. Right, I have my invisibles on and see that that ends with a paragraph symbol, so that everything prior to that up until the next paragraph symbol is all one paragraph. Just double click that entire paragraph and apply that body bold style by clicking on it. So that in a nutshell is paragraph and character styles. One other thing you're going to want to do for sure is actually bring in your shoes, right? Or your products for that matter. So let me see if I can find, I'm going to see if I can jump and get a product quick. Let's see, like this, yeah. All right. Let me grab a shoe that has like more color so I can do that. Okay. All right, so I'll bring this in. Okay, so I'm going to work off this shoe, and so really, once you have all of your shoes kind of put into your folders, you can literally drag each one into Photoshop, and then this is what I would recommend doing to just increase your efficiency. So the first thing I would do is go image size. You're going to check your size, right? So I'm going to bring the sampling down to or up to 300 resolution, uncheck resample, and let my width and height kind of readjust themselves to make the image smaller in width and height. Then I'll go up to mode, change the mode to CMYK. Then double click this background to unlock that background layer. And then what I would do right away is probably do a save as. I would save it as whatever name you want that makes sense. I'll call it shoe 1, right? Or let's say I'll call it category A shoe 1, right? So category A shoe 1, Photoshop file, save, okay. And so what I would do right away is actually figure out what the best way is to isolate this shoe document off of your background. So right away, what I'm going to do is actually grab my wand tool and select all of that white space, right? And that basically the background is so crisp and white that that's all I'll really need to do. And so I'm going to actually turn on my quick mask tool and then grab a little bit more of this shadow stuff, because subtly, very subtly, you can see that there's like between this back end of this front part of the heel and then the heel itself, there's like a very light shadow part. I want to keep that piece, right? So I'm going to actually go into my quick mask tool and just use my eraser to kind of select some of that area, okay? And this is how I'm going to create a shadow layer onto my shoe that I'm going to be able to use across the board. So I'm just going to delete this part of what I have selected as far as the background and stuff. and I'll deselect. I'll hit Command D. And then I'm going to actually then isolate, take the shadow piece off of this layer and put it on its own layer. So I'm going to get in this case, I'm going to do the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to just run along the edge here and then just let Photoshop sort of find that edge for me. You could even use the pen tool or something like that if you wanted to, but I think this is pretty fast. Inefficient, so I'm going to just do it that way. Alright, so then I'm going to actually just copy, cut, and then just paste it in here. Paste special in place. And then so I'm going to just rename this shadow, right? Because I'm going to use my object layer options later on to like target that. So and then unlock or reveal and hide the layers that I want to show in the InDesign document. So I'll call this color 1 for the shoe. And actually I'm going to just make 3 copies of the shoe, right? So I'm just going to alt-click and drag shoe color 1 twice. And so I'm going to rename each one. So color 1, color 2, color 3. So start with color 1. So color 1, let's see. We're just going to, I'm going to do destructive color editing for all of these. Since I have copies of each one, it'll be fine. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and Hue Saturation. See if Colorize does, okay. Yeah, I don't want to do that much. So what I want to do is actually select all of this tan stuff with my wand tool. So I'll bring this intensity up to 60 for my wand. So that'll select all of that. Okay, and now I'm going to Command Shift Option E or invert the selection. So I'm going to go, I forget what the keyword, Command Shift I. There we go. So I'm going to Command Shift I to invert that selection that I just made, right? So then I'm going to then do my hue saturation, and then I'll colorize the shoe just to make it a little more kind of believable, so it has some layering to it, right? So I'm just dragging it to make this green. Okay, so there's color 1. Then I'll turn that off and then turn that on. And let's say for this instance, I'd like to do a replace color. So I'll go to Image Adjustments, and I'll go Replace Color for shoe color 2. And then so what I'll do is take my little hourglass, or I mean magnifier, or I'm sorry, eyedropper, and I'll select this middle tan area, and I'll hit Shift click, and I'm shift clicking all of these different tones of tan. And I'm going to find under here, I'll use my slider this time to sort of see if I can change the tone of this a little bit. Let's see, maybe have it blue. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, like a powdery bluish. So then I'll just hit OK there, and then let's just say, okay, let's match up the outside of that shoe to something to match that blue. Let's say, right? So I'm just going to select this blue area that I just changed the color on, and I'm going to do a Command Shift. I'm going to inverse my selection essentially, just like I did before. Command Shift I. And then maybe I'll hue saturation this one too. The reason why I'm kind of tied to hue saturation for this shoe in particular is the fact that it's black. So anything that's monotone, like black or white, you're not going to really be able to replace color because there like isn't color in it, quote unquote, according to Photoshop for some reason. So you just have to just keep in mind that if your products are very monotone like that, then you're going to want to really take advantage of selecting your content and doing that hue saturation piece to it. So there's a couple different options here. And then for this last one, yeah, I guess I'll just do the same kind of thing. Let me just, actually, I'm going to keep this one black, but I'm going to make the black a little bit richer. And I'm going to do the hue saturation to this inner sole piece. So, kind of, yeah, give it like a pink tone. And then I will kind Command-Shift-I, so I'll select the inverse of everything but the sole, and then I'll go to levels, and then I'll actually just kind of make the darks darker. So you know, and those will be my variation. So I'm going to save this quick, and so I'm going to remember that green is my top layer, right? Good. So I'm going to save. I'm going to go back here to my document, and let's just say this is kind of what I want for my layout. So I'm going to click on one of the objects where I'm going to place my content. I'm going to jump to links, and I'm going to actually hit this relink, this relink button here. So I'm going to relink, and I'm going to navigate to the file. So it's category A, shoe 1, open. All right, so it has different layers and so on and so forth, which is fine. So just hit OK. And so what I first want to do is actually, if you recall, Command Shift Option E, which is that what that does is actually fits the object. It's the same as going up to Object and then Fitting, and then using the fit frame to, let's see, fit content to frame. No, I'm sorry, it's fit content proportionally. That's what it is. It's the same as doing that. But what I'm finding is when I'm doing that, the shoe that I placed is actually in the orientation that it was originally, where it's facing to the left. So some of these little problems can come up. It's not a big deal. We want it to face to the right, right? So if you click on the object with your direct selection tool, and then go to Object, Transform, and Flip Horizontal, you can do that, Command-Shift-Option-E, and it'll just bring it back into the frame, fitting that content proportionally. And then what I can actually do is I'll just crop this down a little bit, right? So I'm going to crop down the window for that, and I'm just going to get rid of these, and I'm going to actually just make a duplicate of this. So I'm going to Option click and drag, and I'll scale this down. Right, so I'm just using my regular scale tool in InDesign, just S click and then defining that anchor point and then clicking again and dragging it towards, just like an Illustrator really. Finding a good position for it, I'll Option click, drag, and hold Shift to constrain the straightness of it from one to the other, and then there. So, and you know, I'll kind of increase the size of this thing too a little bit, just so I fill in more of that negative space. Bring this down. All right, and then so for this part, what I'm going to do is actually essentially leave this there. I'm going to click on this and change the color of it. So remember, if you go to Object and Object Layer Options, you can then turn off, show, and hide those other layers. So I'm going to hide that Color 1 layer and then reveal that Color 2 layer and then hit OK. And then the other thing I'm going to do for the next one is I'm just going to reveal the next color in that I worked on. So that's that richer black one. All right, and so yeah, so there's those. Okay, so that's a good way to placing them. Once you kind of get through, I think what I would do is go through the process of creating your different color variations. Each one of your shoe documents, just do it all at once. Create all those different layers, your shadow, your shoe, your shoe, your shoe, or however many shoes you need to. Some of them it's just like one shoe, right? So I'll just need like 2 layers in that document, one for the big, one for the small, and go on from there. And I would just get into that mode of just photoshopping them all in layers in Photoshop, and then I would just be like, okay, I'll take a 5-minute or a 20-minute break. I'll have some dinner. Then I would come back to it, and then I would just start placing them all in as the same shoe. It would just be a repeat of the same shoe. Place everything into your layout the way you like it. I would take a lot of time with this initial layout here because you're going to want to figure out what the right recipe is for the size of that shoe, right? Because heels are shaped a lot differently than these regular shoes. So I'm going to have like certain challenges as far as space to fitting these in. So you're going to want to find that right recipe for your initial spread. This is the worst case scenario spread. You can see it's completely full of stuff. So if everything can fit in this spread, you can get everything to fit in the other spreads. So that's why I start you off with this worst case scenario option here. And once you get that done, everything's placed into this spread, and you're happy with it, then I would turn on and off all of my layers on my shoes one by one. You know, that could take you like not very long, like maybe an hour or so for these two spreads, I think. Probably even shorter time than that. Last but not least, if you have those shadow layers, which I would highly recommend, and you have a color in your background, you're going to want to, and I'll show you. So if you have like a background texture, and just an FYI, I'm not looking for like very complicated background textures. I mean, they could literally be something like very subtle, like this, let's just say, or whatever. I mean, it could be just an off-white. If you were like, you know what, I wanted to do it in white, that's fine too. You know, just sell me on it. You know, just convince me that that's the right way to go. You know, just like kind of a real-world scenario, you'd have to sell a client on any kind of design decision you make. This is kind of be the same idea. And it's your project at the end of the day too. So, and you know, I'll fully support any decision you make. But just get in the habit of selling that idea. So what I'll do here is I'm actually going to copy this shoe, right? I'm going to copy that. Actually, I'm going to copy all three of these. I'm going to select this, and select this. I'll copy them. And what I'm going to do is actually apply a layering style to this. I'm going to set them to multiply. The reason why I set these to multiply is that you can see that there's a shadow here, and it looks way better if I go into View, Display Performance, High Quality Display. You can see that the shadow is a lot better looking, you know, this way than it was when it's blending into the background. Because the multiply layer really takes all of the white pixels and kind of just makes them transparent, and whatever's non-white is going to kind of really be like see-through essentially. So the lighter pixels are going to be more transparent in these cases. So what I would then do, I've already copied all of these in their 100% opaque state. I'm just actually going to go to Object Layer Options, and I'm just going to like go to each one, and I'm going to turn off all of the different overlays. Or I'm sorry, all of the different layers. So Object Layer Options. And I don't really do this until I'm positive that, you know, all of this stuff is like perfectly positioned and sized and everything else. I don't go through this step because it makes it a little more complicated when you kind of start moving a shadow and a shoe around as one object. You have to kind of group them together, and it's just harder to deal with. So I'll go again, Object Layer Options, turn off that color, hit OK. Right, so then, and then I'll just essentially Command-Shift Option V, paste them all into place, and I'll select each one, Object Layer Options, turn that off. Oop. Oh, that was blank. What? Let me start over. Oh, I see. I have to actually throw these back. All right. Nope, I'm going to lock these up. Lock. I'm just Command-L-ing those to make them lock, because what I pasted was, what I copied was actually behind what I wanted to, my shadow layer. So I'm going to then go to Object Layer Options and then actually turn off the shadow layer for that shoe piece. And this is kind of just the last thing that you want to do. And I feel like, to me, it's really subtle, but it makes it look just kind of more, it gives it more dimension. And it depends on the shoe, too. Like, these shadows are pretty subtle. So let me see here. Object Layer Options. There. So I'm going to Object Unlock all these on the spread. I'll lock this background up. So I'm working directly on this spread. Like if I was, as I'm doing all of my experimenting, and if I was to say, you know, I'm going to experiment a little bit more, I'm not sure this is the right kind of background, or these are the right type, or this is the right folio and stuff, especially the artistic elements, the art elements here. Maybe I have a texture on this background, let's just say. And I'm not sure about it, sold on it, whatever. I'll just leave it there and not make a commitment to it yet. I'll just kind of, you know, keep working. If I want to change it later, I can. Or if I want to just say this is it and this is perfect, I'm going to create a master sheet, a master page out of it, of this background, let's say, or of this folio information here, etc. Any accent items too. Add them to their master page right here, and then you can just kind of drag and drop the master page into these pages below in our pages palette to apply that background style, and then everything is just very easy to do, essentially. This is kind of where your experimentation, this is where I do my experimentation, is essentially in the initial spread. Okay, so yeah, you can see like the shadow is super duper subtle here, but it's there nonetheless. All right, is there any questions by chance at this point? Really quickly, the only other thing I'd like to do is actually see if I can have enough time to actually package this up. What I would do is actually do a save as on this. I'll save this as, I'll call this shoe catalog template spreads on my desktop here. This is kind of a, so you'll essentially want to have, you'll want to have an untouched copy of the entire piece. If not, that's fine, you can apply it, but I would make sure I have 2 copies of it. One that you have, I would call it spreads, and I would delete all of these additional pages so it doesn't take too much of the bandwidth of your machine. And actually I deleted probably too much. I'm going to keep my first page intact. Oh, let me try. Or you know what? I mean, I guess you could just export it all because there's only one additional shoe in here. So yeah, let me just go ahead and just show you the package document here. Yeah, because you'll have a lot of shoes, but you'll just have one additional shoe in there, which is the Nike shoe, and that's fine. I'm just going to be looking at these 2 spreads. So I'll do the package under File. And I'll make sure that all of my links are good. I'll just hit package again. I'll hit continue. And then on my desktop, then I'll just probably give this a name, like let's call it final spreads or something, just for demonstration purposes, and then hit package and OK. And then I'll close this out. Jump to my desktop, and so over here I'll open this file up, and you can see that I do have these shoes on my desktop, and that's kind of a no-no. But since I packaged my file, it makes a copy of it right here. So it makes a copy of the files that I've used in my InDesign document all in one place. And so when you turn this assignment in, once you have your section name and all that other cool stuff and your awesome illustrations or what have you, then just very simply package it up, compress this up, or zip on a Windows machine, right? They're both great as zip file. And then just share this file with me, the zipped file, the zipped packaged file, and then that's it.